The manila envelope sat on Alex's kitchen counter like an unexploded bomb. Its edges were crisp, the address typed with a precision that felt calculated. Outside, the late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the small apartment, mirroring the growing darkness spreading through Alex's mind. 3 weeks ago, everything had seemed normal. Or at least, the version of normal Alex had learned to accept after years of carefully constructed family dynamics. The phone calls had been sporadic but predictable, controlled conversations where words were measured, emotions carefully filtered, and true feelings buried beneath layers of polite conversation. The document inside the envelope changed everything. Bank statements, property records, a trail of financial manipulation that stretched back 15 years. Each page was a knife, slowly revealing the intricate web of deceit that had defined Alex's entire relationship with the family. The discovery wasn't just about money, it was about trust, about the fundamental betrayal of familial love. Growing up, Alex had always been the difficult child, the one who asked too many questions, who refused to simply accept the narrative presented by parents who seemed more interested in appearances than genuine connection. Birthdays were performances. Holidays, carefully staged productions where every smile was calculated, every interaction choreographed to present the image of a perfect family. The first red flag had been subtle, a missed inheritance from a grandmother, then another. Small discrepancies that Alex had initially dismissed as administrative errors. But these documents told a different story, a systematic, long-term exploitation that went beyond simple financial misconduct. Financial records showed how Alex's college fund had been quietly siphoned off, redirected into accounts that bore no relation to educational expenses, business investments made in Alex's name without consent, credit lines opened and manipulated, all while presenting a facade of supportive parenting. More devastating than the monetary theft was the emotional landscape it revealed. Each document was a testament to years of gaslighting, of being told that financial struggles were always Alex's fault. "You're irresponsible," they'd say, "if only you made better choices." The irony was suffocating. The most recent statement was dated just 2 months ago, a property transfer that effectively stripped Alex of what little inheritance remained. It was a calculated move, executed with a coldness that defied familial bonds. Memories flooded back. Thanksgiving dinners where passive-aggressive comments were served alongside turkey. Christmas mornings filled with conditional love, where gifts came with invisible strings of expectation and control. Every interaction had been a carefully constructed illusion. Alex's hands trembled, not from weakness, but from a growing sense of clarity. This wasn't just about money. This was about reclaiming a narrative that had been stolen, about exposing a lifetime of manipulation. The phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, the first tremor of what was to come. "We changed all the locks. You don't have a home anymore. Let's—" The message cut off, leaving a chilling ellipsis that spoke volumes about the battle about to unfold. The text message hung in the air, a digital dagger of rejection. Alex stared at the screen, watching the unsent portion of the message. "Let's" taunt with its deliberate incompleteness. The words echoed the family's lifelong pattern of leaving things unsaid, of communication that was never truly complete. Memory flashed. Dad's voice from years ago, cold and calculating. "You're nothing without us. Remember that." Those words had been a constant undercurrent, a subtle poison injected into every interaction. Now, this text was the final prescription of that toxic prescription. Alex remembered the last family gathering, 6 months ago. A seemingly ordinary Sunday lunch that had been anything but ordinary. The forced smiles, the carefully orchestrated small talk, the way his mother's eyes never quite met his. In retrospect, it was a farewell performance, a final act of theatrical family unity before the curtain fell. The locked-out message wasn't just about a physical home, it was a symbolic eviction. Removal from the family narrative, from the carefully curated history they'd constructed. Each word was a brick in a wall of rejection, mortared with years of manipulation and control. Flashbacks tumbled like dominoes, the constant criticism, the subtle undermining, every achievement minimized, every struggle magnified. A lifetime of emotional manipulation compressed into a single text message. They hadn't just changed the locks on a physical house, they were changing the locks on Alex's entire sense of belonging. The phone rang. Unknown number. Alex let it go to voicemail. "This is a final communication," a clinical voice began. "All financial and familial connections are hereby terminated. Do not attempt to contact." Delete. Each rejected communication was another piece of evidence, another layer of the story they were unwittingly helping Alex construct. They thought this was an ending, but for Alex, it was nothing more than a beginning. The locked-out text wasn't a conclusion, it was a declaration of war. In that moment, something inside Alex shifted. The hurt, the confusion, the years of self-doubt crystallized into something sharp, something dangerous. The victim narrative dissolved, replaced by a cold, calculated resolve. They had meant to destroy him. Instead, they had created something far more powerful. A smile, thin and dangerous, crossed Alex's face. The game was about to change. And for the first time, Alex would be the one making the rules. The public library became Alex's war room. Rows of legal books, financial journals, and digital archives spread across the secluded study table like a strategic map. Each document was a potential weapon, each piece of information a tactical advantage. Research became a methodical art. Alex started with digital forensics, tracing the intricate financial web that connected family members. Old tax returns, property records, business registrations, each document revealed another thread in the complex tapestry of manipulation. Sarah Rodriguez, a forensic accountant and Alex's closest friend, became an unexpected ally. Their late-night strategy sessions were clinical, precise. "This isn't just about revenge," Sarah would say, spreading documents across her home office. "This is about accountability." They discovered a complex network of shell companies, each interconnected in ways that defied simple explanation. Alex's parents hadn't just stolen, they'd architected a sophisticated system of financial deception. Real estate holdings purchased under questionable circumstances, business loans taken out in Alex's name without consent, credit lines manipulated with surgical precision. Legal consultations followed. 3 different lawyers, each approached separately, each building a different part of the potential case. Confidentiality was paramount. No single person could see the entire strategy. Private investigator Marcus Chen brought another layer of intelligence. His discreet inquiries revealed family connections, business partnerships, potential vulnerabilities. "Everyone has a weakness," he'd say, sliding encrypted files across cafe tables. "Your family's just better at hiding theirs." The psychological preparation was equally crucial. Weekly therapy sessions became a training ground. Dr. Elena Martinez helped Alex transform pain into strategic thinking. "Revenge isn't about destruction," she'd explain. "It's about reclaiming your narrative." Alex began building a support network, not for emotional comfort, but as a strategic infrastructure. Former colleagues who had been similarly marginalized, distant relatives who harbored unspoken resentments. Each conversation was a careful probe, gathering intelligence, testing potential alliances. Financial reconstruction became an art form. Alex meticulously documented every financial transgression, creating a paper trail that would withstand legal scrutiny. Forensic spreadsheets mapped out years of systematic exploitation. Bank statements were annotated with forensic precision. Digital security became paramount. New encrypted devices, carefully managed communications. Every digital footprint was calculated, every interaction purposeful. The family that had tried to erase Alex would soon learn the power of being truly seen. Old family photo albums became research materials. Patterns emerged. Moments of manipulation that had once seemed innocent now stood revealed as calculated moves in a long-term strategy of control. The support network grew, not through emotional appeals, but through carefully constructed narratives of shared experience. Other victims of familial financial abuse began to connect, sharing strategies, offering insights. Each day of preparation was a brick in a wall of calculated retribution. No longer the vulnerable child, no longer the victim. Now, a strategist, a architect of accountability. The locks may have changed. But Alex was about to show them that home was never just a physical space, it was a narrative. And narratives could be rewritten. The first move was subtle, almost imperceptible. A carefully crafted email landed in the inbox of Richard Henderson, the senior partner at the law firm where Alex's father had built his reputation. The message was a masterpiece of professional restraint, a detailed report documenting financial irregularities in several of the firm's long-standing client accounts. Attached were meticulously collected documents, bank statements, property transfers, communication logs. Each piece of evidence was time-stamped, cross-referenced, forensically precise. Within 48 hours, the first tremors began. Richard Henderson's assistant called, then the firm's compliance officer, then legal counsel. The veneer of professional respectability that Alex's father had spent decades constructing started to develop microscopic cracks. Meanwhile, another front opened. Sarah Rodriguez leveraged her forensic accounting connections. Whispers began to circulate about questionable business practices. Nothing direct, nothing that could be immediately traced, just enough to create doubt. The family's primary real estate holdings became the next target. Anonymous tips to city planning committees, subtle inquiries about zoning violations, property assessments that suddenly became much more stringent. Each action was a calculated nudge designed to create maximum uncertainty with minimal direct involvement. Alex's mother's charity board received an anonymous package, carefully curated documents suggesting potential financial mismanagement, not enough to prove anything definitively, just enough to raise questions, to create discomfort. Marcus Chen's investigative work proved invaluable. He identified key vulnerabilities, business partners with their own skeletons, potential conflicts of interest that had remained buried for years. Each connection was a potential pressure point. The psychological warfare was deliberate. Alex wasn't seeking destruction. This was about exposure, about dismantling the carefully constructed facade piece by systematic piece. Credit lines began to experience unexpected scrutiny. Business loans faced additional verification processes. Insurance assessments became more complicated. Each institution's standard procedure suddenly seemed to work against the family's interests. Old business partners started asking questions, uncomfortable questions. The network of relationships that had seemed impenetrable began to show stress fractures. A distant cousin, long marginalized by the family, received an encrypted message, an invitation to conversation. A suggestion that perhaps their shared history of familial manipulation could be transformed into something more powerful. Each action was a chess move, calculated, precise, designed to create maximum psychological pressure with minimal direct confrontation. The family's response would be telling. They could double down. They could attempt to fight back. Or they could begin to understand that the child they thought they could control had become something entirely unexpected. A predator of a different kind, methodical, strategic, patient. The locks might have changed, but Alex was about to show them that some doors could never truly be closed. The family's response came swiftly and predictably. Aggressive, desperate. Legal letters arrived, filled with threats and carefully worded warnings. Each document was a transparent attempt to intimidate, to push back against the growing web of exposure. But Alex had anticipated this. Every letter became another piece of evidence, another thread in the larger narrative of manipulation. Alex's father reached out through intermediaries, old business connections, mutual acquaintances. The messages varied, some conciliatory, some threatening, all designed to probe for weakness. Each communication was carefully documented, each approach analyzed. Dr. Martinez's therapy sessions became crucial battlegrounds of emotional strategy. "They're trying to control the narrative," she would explain. "Your power lies in refusing to be controlled." The psychological toll was real. Some nights, doubt crept in like a silent intruder. Was this justice or merely a descent into something darker? The line between accountability and revenge blurred with each passing week. Sarah discovered something unexpected. A series of financial transactions that suggested the family had been covering up more than just simple financial misconduct. Hints of deeper ethical violations, potential criminal implications that went beyond mere financial manipulation. The family's social circle began to fragment. Invitations dried up. Professional networks became less welcoming. The carefully constructed social armor they had worn for decades started to crack and peel. Alex's mother made a critical mistake, a panicked phone call to a local journalist, attempting to get ahead of the narrative. But panic leaves traces, and every trace was another opportunity. Marcus Chen's investigation uncovered a network of silent victims, other families, other individuals who had been similarly manipulated. A support group began to form, not out of vengeance, but out of a shared understanding of systemic familial abuse. The moral complexity became increasingly apparent. This wasn't about simple revenge. It was about breaking a cycle of manipulation that had destroyed multiple lives. Unexpected allies emerged. A distant aunt who had been written out of the family years ago. A former business partner who had long harbored resentment. Each new connection added another layer of complexity to the unfolding drama. The family's attempts to fight back became more erratic. A cease and desist letter here, a threatening phone call there, each action more desperate than the last. They were playing a game they no longer understood, fighting an opponent they could not comprehend. Late one night, scrolling through collected evidence, Alex paused. The weight of the journey became momentarily overwhelming. This wasn't just about punishment, it was about breaking a cycle of abuse, about creating space for healing, not just for oneself, but for others who had been similarly silenced. The phone buzzed. Another message, another opportunity. The game was far from over. And Alex was just getting started. The restaurant was neutral ground. Old money's favorite battlefield, a mahogany-paneled dining room where conversations were as carefully plated as the expensive cuisine. Alex arrived first, dressed impeccably, a visual representation of everything the family had tried to suppress, confident, composed, unbroken. They sat at opposite ends of a private dining room. Parents, Richard and Elizabeth, looked older than their last encounter. Vulnerability masked by decades of practiced composure. The veneer was cracking. "We're here to talk," Richard began, his voice a practiced blend of authority and pseudo-concern. Alex smiled, a razor-thin expression that suggested nothing would be on their terms anymore. "No," came the measured response. "We're here for the truth." The first volley was a manila folder. Meticulously organized documentation spanning 15 years. Financial records, communication logs, evidence of systematic manipulation that went beyond simple family dysfunction. Richard's hand trembled almost imperceptibly as he reviewed the documents. Elizabeth's perfectly maintained composure began to fracture. "You've been collecting these for months," Elizabeth said. Not a question, a realization. The revelations came like precision-guided missiles: the stolen inheritance, the fraudulent property transfers, the business loans taken out in Alex's name without consent, credit lines manipulated, educational funds redirected. But this was more than financial exposure. "Do you remember?" Alex asked. "The night of my college graduation?" A moment of silence, thick, suffocating. "You told me I would never amount to anything, that I was a disappointment, that without your support, I was nothing." Richard attempted interruption, a reflexive move of control. Alex's raised hand stopped him. "I'm not finished." The true weapon wasn't the financial documents, it was the narrative. The systematic emotional manipulation laid bare. Each accusation was backed by documented evidence, phone records, email chains, years of calculated psychological abuse transformed into an irrefutable timeline. Marcus Chen's investigative work proved invaluable. Additional victims were identified, a pattern of familial manipulation that extended beyond a single household. A systemic approach to control that went deeper than anyone had imagined. Elizabeth broke first, not with tears, with a sudden, profound understanding that they had lost control of the narrative. "We thought we were protecting you," Richard mumbled. A last, desperate attempt at justification. Alex leaned forward. "Protecting me would have meant loving me, supporting me, not stealing my future to maintain your facade." The final document was a legal notice, not just a threat. A comprehensive case built with surgical precision, financial restitution, exposure of their manipulative networks, a dismantling of the carefully constructed family mythology. "You changed the locks," Alex said quietly. "Thought you could erase me, but some foundations can't be so easily demolished." The confrontation wasn't about revenge, it was about reclaiming a narrative, about transforming pain into power. Richard's legal reputation, Elizabeth's social standing, the carefully constructed family mythology, all of it hung in delicate balance. One final question remained unspoken: who would survive the fall? 6 months after the confrontation, the world looked different. Richard's law firm collapsed under the weight of the investigation. Clients disappeared. Partnerships dissolved. The reputation built over decades crumbled like a sandcastle against an unforgiving tide. Elizabeth retreated from her social circles. The charity boards that had once celebrated her now whispered behind carefully manicured hands. Social currency proved as fragile as the family's carefully constructed facade. But for Alex, the victory felt nothing like expected triumph. Therapy sessions with Dr. Martinez became a journey of understanding. "Revenge is a complex emotion," she would say. "It's never just about punishment. It's about reclaiming your narrative." The financial settlements were substantial, but money was never the true objective. Each dollar recovered was a testament to survival, not victory. Sarah Rodriguez helped establish a support network for victims of familial financial abuse. What began as a personal mission transformed into a broader movement: support groups, legal resources, a lifeline for those still trapped in similar cycles of manipulation. Old wounds didn't heal overnight. Some nights the weight of the past pressed down like a physical presence, but those moments became less frequent, less powerful. The distant cousin who had been marginalized reached out. Then another family member. A network of survivors began to form, people who understood that family was not about blood, but about genuine connection. Marcus Chen's investigative work continued. More stories emerged. More patterns of systemic familial manipulation were exposed. Alex's story became a catalyst for broader conversations about family dynamics and emotional abuse. The locks had changed, but home was no longer a physical space. It was a state of being, a sense of self reclaimed. Legal battles continued, but they were no longer about revenge. They were about accountability, about creating space for healing. Dr. Martinez's final piece of wisdom resonated. Transformation is never about destroying others, she explained. It's about building yourself. Alex began writing. Not a memoir of revenge, but a guide, a resource for others navigating similar experiences. Each word was an act of liberation. The family that tried to erase Alex had instead created something unexpected. A voice, a platform, a movement. Social media became an unexpected ally. Support groups formed. Conversations started. The isolation that had once been a weapon became a source of collective strength. Some nights, looking out the window of a new apartment, Alex would reflect on the journey. The pain hadn't disappeared, but it had transformed, transmuted into something powerful, something beautiful. The locks may have changed, but home was no longer something that could be taken away. It was something that could be built from within.